his wife said. The glass of Merlot trembled in Daniel's hand, its crimson surface catching the dim glow of the kitchen light as his wife's voice sliced through the silence. "I don't love him anymore," she'd said to someone on the phone, her words muffled but sharp, leaking through the cracked bedroom door an hour ago. "If he vanished before my birthday, that'd be the best gift." Now, standing in their too quiet kitchen at midnight, Daniel's pulse thudded in his ears, each beat a hammer against the fragile shell of his marriage. He set the glass down, the clink against the marble countertop sounding like a gunshot in his mind. The house smelled of lavender candles and the faint tang of her perfume, notes of jasmine that used to pull him closer but now felt like a stranger's scent. He replayed her words, dissecting them. Was it a joke? A moment of frustration? Or had Lauren, his wife of 8 years, meant every syllable? His fingers grazed the edge of a photo frame on the counter, them at the beach last summer, her laughter frozen in time, his arm around her like nothing could break them. The memory felt like a lie. Earlier that evening, she'd been distant at dinner, her fork scraping the plate as she pushed her food around, her eyes darting to her phone every few minutes. "Work stuff," she'd muttered when he asked, her smile tight, unconvincing. He'd let it go, rationalizing it as stress from her new promotion. But now, her words from the phone call gnawed at him, each one a splinter under his skin. He poured another glass of wine, the bottle's neck clinking against the rim, and tried to steady his breathing. The staircase creaked under his weight as he climbed to their bedroom, the hallway lined with framed moments of a life he thought was theirs. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark but pulsing with secrets. He hesitated, his hand hovering over it. Checking it would cross a line, one he'd never considered before. But the doubt was a living thing now, clawing at his chest. He typed her passcode, her birthday, always her birthday, and the screen lit up. A text from Mark, work, glowed at the top. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Same place." Daniel's stomach lurched, the wine souring in his throat. He scrolled, each message a blade. "Miss you already. You make me feel alive. He doesn't deserve you." The timestamp stretched back months, late-night texts while he slept beside her, oblivious. The room spun, the air thick with the hum of the ceiling fan and the weight of his own heartbeat. He wanted to scream, to shake her awake and demand answers, but Lauren slept soundly, her breathing soft, her face serene as if she hadn't just shattered his world. Daniel sank onto the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping under him. He thought of the late nights she'd claimed were for work, the new perfume, the way her laughter had grown rare, replaced by a guarded edge. He'd dismissed it all, her stress, his long hours at the firm, their fading date nights. But the signs were there, weren't they? The way she'd flinch when he touched her unexpectedly, the way her eyes lingered on her phone when she thought he wasn't looking. He'd been blind, or maybe he'd chosen to be. "Who's Mark?" he whispered, testing the words. They felt foreign, like speaking a language he didn't understand. Lauren stirred but didn't wake, her hand curling into the pillow. He imagined confronting her, her eyes wide with guilt, or worse, defiance. Would she lie? Cry? Admit she wanted out? The thought of her voice saying she didn't love him again, this time to his face, made his chest ache like a bruise. He didn't sleep. Dawn crept through the blinds, painting the room in streaks of grey. Lauren woke, stretching with a yawn, her smile automatic as she kissed his cheek. "Morning," she said, her voice light, as if nothing had changed. He nodded, his throat tight, watching her move through their routine. Coffee brewing, toast browning, her humming a tune he didn't recognize. Every gesture felt like a performance now, her normalcy a mask. At breakfast, he tested the waters. "How's work?" he asked, his tone casual but his grip on the mug too tight. She shrugged, stirring her coffee. "Same old. Meetings. Deadlines. You know." Her eyes didn't meet his, flitting to the window instead. He pressed further. "Anyone interesting at the office? New people?" Her spoon paused, just for a second, before she laughed. "Just the usual crowd." "Why?" He wanted to say it then, to spill the truth he'd found, but the words stuck. What if he was wrong? What if Mark was just a friend, and her phone call was a moment of anger? Doubt warred with the evidence, and he hated how much he still wanted to believe in her. "No reason," he said, forcing a smile. She nodded, But her shoulders tensed, and he saw it, the flicker of something guarded in her eyes. That night, she said she had a late meeting. He didn't challenge her, just watched her leave, her heels clicking on the hardwood, her coat slung over her arm. When the door closed, he grabbed his keys. He followed her, his car trailing hers through the city's neon blur, the streets slick with rain. She didn't go to her office. Instead, she parked outside a dimly lit bar, one he'd never heard of. Through the window, he saw her slide into a booth, a man waiting, tall, sharp-jawed, his hand reaching for hers. Mark. Daniel's breath fogged the car window, his hands shaking as he gripped the steering wheel. He didn't go inside. He couldn't. The betrayal was real now, not just words on a screen but a scene playing out in front of him. He drove home, the city lights smearing into streaks through his tears. Back in their kitchen, he sat in the dark, the photo frame from earlier now face down on the counter. He didn't know who he was angrier with, her for breaking their vows, or himself for believing they were unbreakable. The next day was her birthday. She'd hinted at wanting a quiet dinner, just the two of them. He cooked, his hands moving on autopilot, searing steak, chopping herbs, the motions mechanical. When she came home, she smiled, kissed him, and said, "This is perfect." But her eyes were distant, and he wondered if she was thinking of Mark, if she was counting the hours until she could slip away again. As they ate, he watched her, searching for the woman he'd married. She laughed at his small talk, but it felt hollow, like an echo of who they'd been. He thought of her words again. If he vanished before my birthday. The knife in his hand felt heavy, the candlelight glinting off its edge. He could confront her now, ruin the facade, or he could play along, let her think she'd won. But there was a third option, one that whispered in the dark corners of his mind. "Happy birthday," he said, raising his glass. She clinked hers against it, her smile soft but not quite reaching her eyes. As she sipped, he wondered if she'd noticed the faint bitterness in her wine, the kind that lingered just long enough to make her sleepy. He'd read about it online. Colorless, tasteless, untraceable. Not enough to kill, just enough to make her sleep through the night while he packed a bag and disappeared. By morning, he was gone, the house silent except for the ticking clock. On the kitchen counter, the photo frame stood upright again, but his face was scratched out, a jagged mark where his smile used to be. Lauren would wake to find him vanished, just as she'd wished. But as Daniel drove into the dawn, the weight of her betrayal sat beside him, a passenger he couldn't outrun. He'd given her what she wanted, but at the cost of everything he'd believed in. The road stretched ahead, empty, and he wondered if freedom was supposed to feel this much like heartbreak.